It is Wednesday yet again, ladies and gentlemen, and I feel like I don't even have to say it anymore because you know by now that on this channel, I feature your Bulls hot takes and my reaction to them every Wednesday. And with the draft and free agency coming up, we've got a lot of good hot takes this week. But before I get into the takes, just a reminder that I am doing 4 remaining giveaways leading up to 10,000 subscribers: a jersey giveaway, a Scottie Pippen piece of sports memorabilia, a 2021 edition Bulls hat, and finally tickets to a game in this upcoming season at the United Center. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, as I'll be announcing each giveaway separately on a random video every week. But anyway, without delaying this too much further, so I can cover as many takes as possible, let's get into our first take. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Our first take comes to us from Jolly Old Brit, which is from the Discord, by the way. Feel free to join the Bulls Central Discord. It is entirely free. A link is in the description. But the take is the Bulls are to go after Montrezl Harrell in free agency and put him at the 4. Montrezl Harrell, he's an interesting one because I do think he would be a good backup 4 or 5 for the Bulls, which the Bulls will likely need, especially if Markkanen, Tice, or Thaddeus Young don't return to the team. You know, obviously the addition of the rookie Marko Simonovic will help in that regard, but he's not just going to be fully NBA ready and ready to compete right out of the gate. Whereas with Harrell, you can get an established player who is decent on offense, down low. You know, I think the main thing for me is at what cost would it take to get Montrezl Harrell? How much money are you going to have to pay him? Because as much as people like him, given the fact that he was a 6th man of the year, just like he was the prior season, he's not worth that much money. I think anything over $9 million a year is an overpay in my opinion. But if you can get him for cheap, sure, I think it's worth it. I think the question is, will he want to go to the Bulls? Likely not. I think he's going to want to remain with the Lakers or go to another contender. Next up, we've got Che Muller. If the Bulls have a losing record at the trade deadline next year, we should trade both Lavine and Vucevic for some talented young pieces and a heap of draft capital. Listen, I get what you're saying, and hey, if the Bulls haven't shown any kind of improvement and have, you know, really just played poorly and they have a losing record, but let's say it's a losing record like 1 or 2 games below 500, you know, I'm talking about say 5 to 10 games below 500 or worse, then yeah, at that point you really have to assess, was this a mistake trading for Vucevic and building around Lavine, and do you just cut your losses at that point and go in full rebuild and get pretty good value in return for 2 all-stars who I'm sure a lot of good teams would love to have them and would be willing to give up their draft capital as a result, kind of like what the Bulls actually did to get Vucevic? Then yeah, I think that makes sense, especially since if you're losing quite a bit and you're approaching the deadline, you would have to think that Lavine isn't going to hang around and just leave as a free agent for nothing in the offseason, so you might as well trade him to get something in return. But look, the Bulls aren't going to have a losing record by the time that we reach the trade deadline when that rolls around next season. That would be a complete embarrassment, especially since you would hope that this roster will be further improved this offseason. Next up, we've got Dean Roth. We should trade Coby White, Al-Farouq Aminu, 2024 and 2026 first for Dejounte Murray. Well, first of all, the Bulls actually aren't able to trade their first round pick in 2024 since they've already traded their 2023 first to Orlando as a part of the Vucevic trade, and the NBA doesn't allow for consecutive first round picks to be traded. But let's say for a moment that ends up not being the case, and the Bulls could send Al-Farouq Aminu and 2 firsts for Dejounte Murray. Now, just to put this into perspective, the Bulls traded 2 firsts and Wendell Carter Jr. for Nikola Vucevic, who is an all-star big man. And you hear a lot of people saying, well, that was too much for Vucevic. And, you know, he's an all-star big man who puts up 25 and 12. Now, I like Dejounte Murray, and I think there is a lot of potential there, but he is not worth 2 first-round picks and a young player with the potential that Coby White has. I like that it's a unique trade rather than some people who just believe we could somehow get Murray for Markkanen in a sign-in trade, which would never happen. The Spurs would never go for that. But no, for me, this is too much for Murray. Next up, we've got Jald823. Zach Lavine will average all NBA numbers next season, and the Bulls will finish 5th in the East as a result. Well, really, Lavine already put up all NBA numbers this past season. I mean, the guy averaged near 28 points per game on over 50% shooting from the field and 42% from 3, and also 5 rebounds and 5 assists. I mean, those are very impressive numbers, and you could argue He should have been selected to an All-NBA team over some guys like Jimmy Butler, Julius Randle, even Kyrie Irving or Paul George. Now, I'm not here to debate that, but as for your take, I think even if Lavine puts up similar numbers to these, he deserves an All-NBA bid, especially if his team is a top 5 seed in the East, like you mentioned. I think what wasn't in Lavine's favor this past season was finishing 11th in the East. Next up, we've got Oliver Yase. Bulls sign Lauri and keep him. Trade Patrick Williams plus Vooch plus Thad for Bam Adebayo. So I know you've got a reasoning in the rest of the take, but my man, this is way too much for someone like Bam. And I like Bam Adebayo a lot and think his defense down low would be incredible for the Bulls, but you're talking about trading Vucevic, the Bulls' second best player and an all-star, one of their most versatile players and veteran voices in Thaddeus Young, and their best up-and-coming prospect that they just drafted last season with the number 4 pick. All for Bam Adebayo. It's just too much to risk on a player like Bam. Next up, we've got King Rodney. If Jimmy Butler never got traded from the Bulls would have made the finals recently. No, I don't think so. I mean, because you have to still keep in mind that even if the Bulls didn't trade Jimmy, they were still being run by Garpax, and I don't think that the front office was really capable of assembling a finals level team, even though they did to an extent with MVP D Rose. But the Bulls team with Jimmy Butler and being coached by Fred Hoiberg was not a team set up for success that would have been able to put them into the finals. Not only that, but Jimmy Butler, as much as I like the guy, and I know he led the Heat to the finals in the bubble last season, he was surrounded by the perfect supporting cast, a great coach and a great GM that enabled him to get there. I don't think that would have happened on the Bulls, especially because Jimmy wasn't really invested in the Bulls towards the end of his time with the team, because he wasn't happy with the coach, he wasn't happy with the front office, and the team, was not anywhere close to heading to the finals. Next up, we've got Jeremy Granger. Bulls need to trade for Sabonis. Trade Mark, a few seconds, and Satoransky. Sabonis and Vooch would be a nasty 1-2 punch. Well, a couple things. I really like Sabonis, and I think he's a very underrated player in the league, but I actually don't think he would fit that well alongside Vucevic, as you're indicating, partly because neither of them are the greatest defenders, although very strong players on offense, and that's why Sabonis on the Pacers next to Miles Turner works, because Turner is a great rim protector. Without a strong rim protector, the Bulls would have zero interior defense with Sabonis. Not only that, but there's no way the Pacers would go for this trade. It's nowhere near enough for someone like Sabonis. Markkanen and a couple second-round picks and Sato isn't enough for a guy who was already a 2-time All-Star at the age of 25. Next up, we've got Blaugrana. We signed Denzel Valentine on a very small deal to use him as a trade asset. God, I hope not. And to be honest, that would be a mistake if they go that route, because I don't think you could really get that much for him in the form of a trade, so why even bother signing him to a cheap deal with the intention of shipping him when you may not be able to even trade him in the first place? No, Denzel Valentine has played his last game as a Bull this past season. To be honest, he might have even played his last game in the NBA. Next up, we've got Man of Steel 626. Bulls sign Lonzo Ball and run a starting 5 of Lonzo, Coby, Lavine, Patrick, and Vooch. See, for me, if the Bulls do in fact bring in Lonzo Ball, yes, he absolutely does have to start at point guard. I mean, that's really the whole reason for bringing him in. But what I don't like in this lineup is having Coby at the 2 and Zach at the 3. I think Coby, although yes, probably a better off-the-ball shooting guard, you can't push Lavine to the 3. Because yes, Lavine can play small forward, he's done it before, but he's so much more effective on offense playing the 2. And prioritizing Coby in that role over Lavine is a mistake. Now, if the Bulls do in fact bring in Lonzo, Coby is going to have to come off the bench. It's just the fact of the matter. I do still think he can get a lot of minutes coming off the bench because he can be a combo guard as a backup behind both Lonzo and Lavine. But starting him at the 2 and Lavine at the 3, yes, it could work, but it's not the most ideal scenario for the Bulls as it relates to maximizing every player's strengths. I do like the idea of putting Patrick Williams at power forward. We did see him play that position last season. I actually thought that he was much more aggressive on offense as a result, and so I hope to see him play the 4 more this season. Then, of course, Vucevic at the 5. Yeah, no surprises there. Next up, we've got Daryl Pride. Marko Simonovic will equal or even possibly exceed Lauri's rookie season, given that he will have enough playing time in this upcoming season. Well, first, I'm not sure why you think Simonovic will get a lot of playing time. I mean, keep in mind, Lauri Markkanen started every game his rookie season, averaging 30 minutes per game. Simonovic isn't going to even come close to getting those kind of minutes, especially if the Bulls retain Tice and Thaddeus Young, because he's going to have to share minutes with those guys. And as of right now, they are both better players. Not only that, but Lauri actually had a pretty solid rookie season, averaging 15.2 points per game on fairly efficient shooting and 7.5 rebounds. So no, I've said this before, I think we need to manage expectations with Simonovic and realize that he's not going to be coming into the league right out of the gate and playing like a Lauri Markkanen or even better. I would expect that he's likely not even going to average more than 10 minutes a game in his first season. And that's not a knock on him. It's just the fact of the matter that it's going to take some time for him getting used to playing NBA level basketball. He's a second round pick. And as of right now, the Bulls have a lot of bigs, so I don't even expect him to be in the rotation right away. Let's do one more. This one comes to us from Ori Shemer. Troy Brown Jr. is an official untouchable. Greetings from Israel. Greetings to you, sir. You know, I'm actually glad you said this one because I feel like we don't talk about Troy Brown Jr. enough on the channel. I was very impressed from what I saw from Troy Brown Jr. in his limited games that he played with the Bulls after being traded before then getting injured. But he was very scrappy on defense, brought a lot of energy, and although he still needs to work on his offensive game, he's very athletic in his ability to drive to the basket. Now, would I say that he's untouchable? No, because he's not that good, but he's young with upside potential, and because he's a solid defender, the Bulls always need that. You could argue he's one of the few players that likely shouldn't be considered in trades just because, again, he's young with potential on a cheap rookie scale contract. He's definitely one of the players that I fully expect to be on the team next season. I would be pretty shocked if he wasn't. Anyway, guys, I'm going to end it there for this week's hot takes. As always, feel free to leave your hot takes in the comments below to be included in next week's video. I'll be continuing this series all off season. Be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan and you enjoy daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.